On behalf of CAI, Penn State University, and the IT Metrics and Productivity Institute, we would like to welcome everyone today to this webinar on business process architectures, a comparative analysis of reference models, methods, and best practices. This webinar has been developed by Dr. Shawn Clark of Penn State University in conjunction with CAI. My name is Michael Maludis, and I'm Director of Marketing for CAI. Presenting with me today is Dr. Shawn Clark, Professor at Penn State University's College of Information Sciences and Technology. You will be able to hear Shawn and myself as panelists, but as a reminder, all other audio lines have been muted. Shawn Clark is currently a Professor of Practice at Penn State University's College of Information Sciences and Technology and a founding member of the Enterprise Informatics and Integration Center at Penn State, an applied research group seeking to actively engage industry and nonprofit leaders to address critical issues in enterprise process management, knowledge management, and decision-making. At Penn State, Dr. Clark teaches courses in systems development, IT project management, professional services theory and practice, and enterprise process management. Dr. Clark's current research focuses on anticipatory socio-technical clue detection engines, enterprise process architecture visualization and alignment, and sense-making via functional hierarchies. Dr. Clark has consulted with reputable organizations such as IBM, Ford Motor Company, the U.S. Marine Corps, Chubb Insurance, Providence Gas, Brooklyn Union, and many others. He also works as an executive education professional at Penn State, providing training on the alignment of IT and business strategies and architectures. Dr. Clark earned his PhD in Business Administration at Penn State and his Master's of Organizational Behavior and Bachelor's of Science degrees at Brigham Young University. Thank you for joining us, Shawn. Nice to have you with us today. Before we get started with the actual presentation, I just want to say a few words about our sponsor, CAI. CAI is a global IT services and outsourcing firm that is currently managing active engagements with over 100 Fortune 1000 companies and government agencies around the world. For over 25 years, we've helped our clients increase throughput, increase productivity, and lower costs through a combination of best practices and tools that enable visibility into and control over software development and maintenance activities. CAI is very happy to be here today to facilitate today's discussion. We are looking forward to yet another productive and informative session. Before we start the webinar, a couple of housekeeping notes. If you have any questions during the course of the webinar, please feel free to submit them throughout the presentation via your question and answer interface. We will get to all of your questions at the conclusion of the webinar during the question and answer session. I would encourage you to feel free to post them as they arise throughout the webinar. If anybody has any audio or visual technical difficulties, you can also use the question and answer interface to notify us, and I will personally respond to those issues in real time in order to get you up to speed as quickly as possible. I'm also happy to announce that today's webinar and all future webinars has been accredited by the PMI's ISIG group with 1 PDU credit. You will receive 1 credit for today's webinar, and the codes you need to get that credit will be displayed on the final slide on the question and answer slide. And for those of you joining us through audio alone, I will make an effort to read that code out for you several times. If anybody has any questions about what to do with this code, we do have step-by-step instructions posted on our main webinar site, and that URL will also be displayed at the conclusion of today's webinar. I'm also happy to announce that today's, if you'd like to review today's webinar more than once, or if there's a webinar in the future that you might miss for some reason, we do record these live webinars, and all recordings are being uploaded to our online library of webinar recordings, which you can access anytime at itmpi.org/library. Please keep in mind that there is approximately a 5 to 10 business day turnaround time for when a live webinar is complete to when it actually materializes on the library site. However, there are always a very large number of archive recordings from the past that are available at any given time. Shawn, we are on slide 6, presentation objectives. You're now in control of the presentation. Please proceed.
Slide 6. Can we move to the cover page? We're going to be working through this, having Mike move through the slides for me. Does that work, Mike?
Yes, we are on presentation objectives.
Okay, thank you. It's my pleasure to speak with you briefly about business process architectures. It's something I'm excited about. It plays nicely into my interests in enterprise architecture, being very holistic about the entire architecture of a business enterprise, I'm going to speak with you briefly about the benefits and value of process architecture, thinking, and management, and try to compare and contrast a handful of reference models that you may wish to explore if you decide to go down the path of enterprise process architectures. And then I'll talk about if I'll discuss a method for your own architecture development and present some best practices that I think would be useful if you decide to implement this in your organization. All right, slide 3. Maybe this goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. I'm a big fan of business process, and for the following reasons. My background is such that I've explored and spent time in not only the technology area, but the organization areas, business, strategy, human resources, and all types of things like that. But what I find fascinating about business processes, and I think this is often overlooked, is that business process is the nexus where all of these things come together, and it is the sort of the instantiation of all elements of business, because process refers to the action of an organization. And I think that there's enormous power in understanding that simple principle. So given that viewpoint, then we can see organizations as bundles or portfolios or systems of processes. Now, I'm quite certain that most organizations are becoming pretty good at process reengineering, process management. And what we largely see is that organizations, they chase down the heavy hitter processes and they manage those while overlooking many other processes that may not be as transaction intensive or data intensive or non-automatable. And from my point of view, I think that's a mistake. So I'm going to be suggesting that we take process seriously as an entire kind of enterprise-wide perspective. Next slide, please. So what I'm proposing is I hold a vision, and it's of this thing I call the omnigrated enterprise, which would imply that you had some grasp of the entire set or portfolio of business processes under your stewardship. It would be the sum of all processes. I'm usually, most organizations are hard-pressed to provide an individual or employee or an outsider with documentation of the processes that they're managing. I know that we can show onesies, twosies, and we obviously have automated many things, but if I were to ask for an enterprise process architecture or an enterprise process catalog, you know, one wonders how many organizations could produce something that said, well, here is the sum of my processes. So let's imagine that you did have that catalog of processes and that you had them fully elaborated and integrated with the other aspects of your architecture. Wouldn't it be nice if each of the processes that you identified in your organization, and I'm not just talking about the technology-driven processes, but that you had metrics tied to each of those, and then that for each of those processes you could associate concepts, methodologies, in other words, knowledge, and other information assets, and that this whole bundle of processes, this whole network of processes, then also aligned to your business strategy and its structure and the technology infrastructure.